Stan and Wendy have been together for almost 30 years of television, and over the course of that run, they've broken up multiple times. One of them projectile vomits every time he gets near the other. Their entire relationship runs on a thumbs up emoji. On paper, they're kind of a really bad match and one of the worst South Park could have built. And yet, somehow, they are the healthiest couple in the whole town. So what do Stan and Wendy teach us about what actually makes love work? Let's start with Stan. Now, Stan is not a dumb kid. He's not a cold one. Most of the time, he's the level-headed rationalist among the boys. He's the intellect. He works out what's really going on while everyone around him is losing their cool. But there's one thing Stan is bad at: communication, which, as it turns out, is pretty important in a relationship. Who would have thought, huh? He can't deal with his own feelings out loud, the big, soft, vulnerable ones especially. When something really gets to him, the emotions, he clamps down. He goes cool, he changes the subject, he tells you he's fine when he's very obviously not fine. He's the strong silence type, if the strong silence type were 9 years old and handled every heartbreak by going home to play Nintendo. There is a name for this kind of behavior that Stan exhibits. It's called avoidant attachment. An avoidant kid works out early that showing a big feeling either gets them hurt or gets them nowhere, so they stop showing them at all. They still feel everything, but they just treat their own emotions kind of like a gas leak. Contain it, seal it, and whatever you do, don't let it into the room. Next, there's Wendy, who runs on the opposite end of the spectrum. And to be clear, Wendy is not some nervous wreck overloaded with her emotions. She's confident, she's sharp. Maybe you can even call her a bit high maintenance. She runs for class president and wins. She'll take on the entire school the second it stops being pleases and sparkles. Most of the time, she is the secure, mature person in the building. But drop her into this specific relationship, and one specific fear switches on. The moment Wendy senses Stan's attention drifting somewhere else, she can't leave it alone. She has to do something about it. Confront it, fix it, win him back, right now. That is the anxious side of the same coin. Anxious attachment is when the connection starts to feel load-bearing, so any threat to it feels like this 5-alarm fire. So you've got Stan, whose instinct is to pull inward and shut the door, standing next to Wendy, whose instinct is to charge at the door with a battering ram and force it open. And that combination is trouble, because anxious and avoidant is one of the worst matches you can put in a room together. It's the pairing every therapist dreads, and every relationship account on TikTok has a 12-part series on it. It plays out the same way almost every time. The avoidant one pulls back to feel safe, the anxious one reads that pullback as rejection and pushes harder. The pushing makes the avoidant one feel crowded, so they retreat even further. Now it's a loop, and it gets tighter every time around. One person chasing, one person running, both of them dead sure the other one is the problem. Therapists have watched this exact dance drag more couples under than almost anything else. In fact, I have a family member who is a therapist and knows exactly this feeling. So, on paper, these two should have been a slow-motion car crash. Except, they turn out to be the longest relationship in the show, longer than some marriages in that town. Kinda says a lot about those other relationships, huh? So, how does the worst pairing on the whole chart outlast everybody? Well, early on, a big part of the answer is kind of a joke that you probably wrote off as a cheap gag years ago. For the first several seasons, every time Wendy gets close to Stan, he throws up on her. She says hi, he pukes. She tries to comfort him, he pukes. She tries to kiss him, he pukes. But look at what that solves for a kid like Stan. He can't say he likes her because the words physically won't come to him. And yeah, that's the whole avoidant problem in a nutshell. For someone anxious like Wendy, a boy who never says it should be unbearable because her brain treats silence as a no, as a rejection. That silence is the exact thing that should end them before they start. But let's go on from there. Stan can play it cool with his face and his words all he wants, but his stomach always betrays him. The second Wendy is in range, his whole system rats him out and hands her the one thing she's desperate for. He physically can't pretend he doesn't care. She can feel it deep down in his stomach and on her face. And the show all but says out loud later on that Wendy kind of loves this. Of course she would. I mean, not maybe the puke, but the reaction. She's the only person on the planet who can do that to him, can make him feel those kinds of butterflies. When your biggest fear is not being wanted, and someone else has to be forced to show that they want you, that's about the most reassuring thing there is, because nobody can fake that, and nobody can rehearse it. Now, none of this means that Stan never shows up for her any other way. I mean, he does, not just physical. It's more and more as the show goes on, and the two of them have some genuinely sweet moments that have nothing to do with him blowing chunks. So, no, he's not a mute who only speaks in vomit. What the puke tells you is how he's wired underneath. When Stan is too scared to do the emotional work himself, his body does it for him. That's kind of how we work. It goes from the intellect to the emotions to the body. The body holds the ground. But a reflex like that only keeps the peace as long as nobody feels truly threatened. It's a patch, it's a band-aid. He's still the same avoidant boy who likes the anxious girl, and the second a real rival walks into the picture, that wiring grabs the wheel, and it doesn't drive safely. This is what the anxious brain does the moment it senses a threat to the relationship. It moves first, without waiting for reassurance. These moves are called protest behaviors. A protest behavior is basically anything you do to force the connection back open when you're scared it's closing. Blowing up their phone with texts, trying to make them jealous, keeping score, picking a fight just to get a reaction out of them. It feels productive, like you're solving the problem, but really you're just yanking the fire alarm and praying they come running. Better that you perhaps talk to them first and tell them there's smoke instead of waiting to pull the fire alarm. Nobody in South Park pulls that alarm harder than Wendy Testaburger. Let's go back to season 1, shall we? A gorgeous substitute teacher named Miss Ellen turns up, and Stan develops a fat little crush on her. Wendy realizes this. Now, the secure move here would be to just talk to Stan about it, be honest and communicative, but no. That's not remotely what happens. First, she tries to scare the teacher off, then she tries to ruin her reputation, and when none of that happens, she arranges to have Miss Ellen strapped to a rocket and launched directly into the sun. Then she throws a party to watch it happen and brings a little eclipse box so she can enjoy the show without wrecking her eyes. There's no middle setting with this girl. It goes straight from jealous to out of the frickin' stratosphere.
Don't f*** with Wendy Testaburger.
It's an unhinged, hilarious escalation, and it might be the most honest picture of jealousy the show ever draws. Because watch where every ounce of that energy goes. It all goes at the rival, the teacher, the threat, the other woman. Wendy never once turns to Stan and confronts him about it, or opens up about her own feelings of jealousy, or maybe even neglect from Stan. So instead, she can fire every rival she finds into orbit, but that question will still be there because nothing she did so much as even touched it. And she runs the same play again and again. When BB suddenly has every boy in class drooling over her, Wendy panics and gets breast implants to keep up, then feels ridiculous once the whole craze dies down on its own a week later. When she spots Stan being friendly with an older woman who turns out to be a friend of his grandmother, she decides it's a betrayal before she has a single actual fact. It's the same thing every time. A threat shows up, the fear spikes, and rather than confronting the fear head-on, Wendy goes after the threat. Now, before this turns into a video about just how Wendy is the crazy one, let's talk about how Stan runs on the same fear from the other direction. In Follow That Egg, the class gets paired off for one of those carry a fake egg baby assignments, and Wendy ends up partnered with Kyle. Stan, despite being broken up with Wendy at this point, is threatened by it, exactly the way Wendy would be. But Stan is avoidant, so his jealousy comes out sideways. There's no confrontation, conversation, or strapping Kyle to a rocket and shooting him into the sun. Stan spends a solid week simply being cold and petty and passive-aggressive to his best friend, until Kyle finally corners him about it.
Okay, Stan, you've been an asshole to me all week. What is up? What's up? Oh, nothing except that you've been trying to impress Wendy all week long like a pathetic dickhole.
Unlike Wendy, who comes at a threat directly, Stan curls inward and leaks out as resentment toward everyone standing nearby. And notice what neither of them ever does. Neither one walks up to the person they're really scared about and just says the thing. So neither one of them ever gets the answer that would actually calm them down. Every single time one of those two gets scared, they reach for control. Control the rival, control the story, control how much of themselves the other person gets to see. And control is the one move that never works on this particular fear, because the fear is really just that same small question. Do you still want me? Shooting a teacher into the sun doesn't answer it. Getting implants doesn't answer it. The only thing that answers it is hearing the truth from the person you're scared of losing, and telling the truth is exactly what both of them are worst at. Which leaves an obvious question hanging. If they're both this quick to panic, both this bad at the truth, and both this ready to burn the whole thing down the second they feel threatened, then how are these two still together after almost 30 seasons of television without either of them aging a single day? Well, besides for the fact that they live in a cartoon. The real answer turns out to be the same thing that separates the couples who make it from the couples who don't. and it has almost nothing to do with how much they fight. There's a myth about good relationships that I think is worth killing right at the start. The myth is that the healthy ones are the couples who don't really fight at all. Two people who just click, who barely argue because they're so compatible in the first place. Turns out it's almost always the reverse. When you follow couples over a lot of years, the ones who actually stay together and the ones who break up fight about the same amount, usually about the same handful of things. What separates them is whether they know how to make up and improve their relationship over time. One person choosing to let it go instead of landing the last hit. One person choosing to be vulnerable and allowing the other one to quote-unquote win. The couples who make it have 100 little ways of finding their way back to each other and learning from it. The couples who don't. Once you know how to look for that, Stan and Wendy stop looking like a mess and start looking like proof. These two break up, more than once, and every time it's a different lesson in how people actually get back up, or don't. Once you know how to look for that, Stan and Wendy stop looking like a mess and start looking like proof. We've talked about the episode Raisins on this channel multiple times by this point. Wendy dumps Stan. Stan takes it about as well as a 9-year-old possibly can, which is to say he goes goth and starts writing poetry about pain and darkness. There's no reunion here. Wendy is gone. Stan gets through this by feeling the whole miserable thing all the way down until there's nothing left to feel. And then, slowly but surely, he's all right again. He doesn't compress it down into himself and hide his feelings away, and Butters helps him with that. Sometimes the other person doesn't come back, and you have to live through this anyway. That's life. They don't stay broken up forever, though. The reunion the show treats as their real one comes a few seasons down the road in the season 11 episode, The List. The plot is a bit of a mess. Kyle gets voted ugliest boy in the whole 4th grade by a secret council of girls who run their little club like it's the UN. Kyle takes the news about as well as you'd expect a 9-year-old to, which is to say he starts buying kerosene with arson on his mind. Real school shooter vibes here. We've already covered this episode in detail in another video, so go ahead and check that one out if you're interested. What I want to spend time on here is the B-plot of the episode, which involves Stan and Wendy for the first time since their breakup. Stan goes to his ex-girlfriend, of all people, because he figures that Wendy can find out why his best friend got ranked dead last. And Wendy agrees to help him out. The whole thing slowly turns out to be the pettiest conspiracy in television history. Turns out that the whole list was forged so that Clyde could land at number 1 because his dad owns a shoe store and a few of the girls wanted the discount that came with dating him. But when all is said and done, Stan and Wendy share a pretty sweet moment together.
Stan, it's been really great hanging out with you again. I feel like you've changed somehow, in a really awesome way.
Yeah, well, I guess a lot of things have changed, don't they?
He doesn't win her back by trying to win her back, by trying to earn her as a prize. He wins her back by showing up for his friend and turning out to be somebody worth trusting again along the way. And because it's South Park, the sweet moment gets capped by Stan puking on her out of nervousness. They split again off-screen in Go Fund Yourself when Stan gets so far up his own startup's ass that he dumps Wendy to focus on the business and tells Clyde he's about to be, quote,
dripping in bitches?
Big talk for a 9-year-old who's about to spend the rest of the episode trying to unsay it. The company collapses, Stan's back at school, and by the end of Gluten-Free Ebola, Wendy asks Stan to dance. And he says yes so fast, it's basically a reflex at this point. He's learning to value love over bitches. But apart from the breakup and the reunions, the thing that really shows you these two are solid is smaller and easier to miss. When Stan hits the lowest point of his life after turning 10 years old. His family falls apart. His whole outlook goes rotten, and he drops into a genuine depression. He starts drinking. He turns into a miserable bummer nobody wants to be near, and one by one, everyone walks out on him. Even Kyle, his best friend since before either of them could talk, gives up and walks off. But one person doesn't. Wendy had been concerned for Stan the whole episode, asking Kyle if he had talked to him and wanting to go to his house. But Kyle doesn't want to go. So she takes matters into her own hands, and we see a short shot of her and Stan out on a picnic. With Stan genuinely falling, she turns out to be the last one still truly concerned for him. That's the tell. Anyone can be around when it's easy. The thing that counts is being around after the other person has gone cold and everyone else has already bailed, and you still provide warmth. So by now, these two have shown you the whole toolkit. He learns to survive the bad stretches without running. She learns to stay through the bad stretches instead of bailing like everyone else does. Both of them get better, slowly, at the one job that actually keeps two people together, which is just showing up and being there for each other when it counts, and just improving their relationship over time. That's all you really can do. Which is exactly what makes what happens next such a problem. Because for the first time, one of them finds a way to skip the hard part. Because it turns out you can fake this job too. But the thing that's supposed to prove that you're really paying attention to someone, well, there's an app for that now. It starts on the playground. BB is showing off a text from Clyde. Everyone is melting over it, and Red turns to Wendy and asks if Stan ever talks to her like that.
No. Every time I send Stan a text, he just responds with a thumbs up emoji.
So Wendy does the healthy thing here that neither of them could manage back in the jealousy days.
Hey Stan, is there a time we could talk today? I'm feeling a little insecure about some things.
She talks about her actual feelings instead of going after some kind of third party. Stan feels bad enough that he goes straight to Clyde for help, and here's how he puts it.
When she said that she wishes I would reply to her text the way that Clyde responds to Bebe, so how do you do it?
And Clyde's solution is what the whole world has been relying on since 2023.
ChatGPT, dude.
He walks Stan through the entire process. Copy whatever Wendy wants, paste it into the app, hit generate, and copy that back to her. Stan takes the advice and just starts feeding Wendy's texts through the chatbot without even reading what comes out the other side. And it works terrifyingly well. Wendy is getting the warmest, most attentive version of a boyfriend she has ever had, and none of it came from the real him. So the closest Wendy has ever felt to Stan is when an LLM has taken over that role for him. Literally the one job you can't hand over to anyone else, the work of being known and communicating. Then comes the reckoning. They go on a date, and Wendy opens up, tells him something that happened to her when she was 6, something she's apparently never told a soul, and thanks him for finally being someone she can say it to. Because through all those texts, he told her the exact same thing happens to him. Except Stan has no idea what she's talking about. The AI made the whole thing up to keep the conversation going, and Stan finally realizes that the safest Wendy has ever felt around him was built entirely by something that isn't him. Stan bails on the date the second he can make an excuse, and Wendy hugs him goodbye, having no idea what had actually happened.
Shit.
And that's the gut punch. Because she means it completely. She's not suspicious, she's not hurt, she's grateful. She just called a pile of chatbot slop the only real thing in her life, and walked off happy. Even though it's an illusion. The only people who know how wrong that is are Stan and us. Which is exactly why it eats at him. He got away with it clean. She's happier than she's ever been. And somehow that's worse, because now the whole thing she loves is a costume, and he's the only one who can recognize this. Then the episode moves on to a completely different disaster, because the cheating spreads. Half the class is running essays through the same app, the school brings an AI detection system to catch whoever's doing it, and the thing that gets flagged is the chatbot writing in Wendy's phone. She gets hauled in and accused of cheating, that she never did, because the fake texts are sitting in her messages and nobody is checking whose thumbs actually typed them. And this is where Stan is supposed to step up and say the words that fix this problem. Instead, he does the thing he's been doing all episode. He can't think of a way out on his own, so he asks the app to think of one for him. And it hands him an ending for the episode that supposedly gives us an AI version of events.
We were all taken advantage of, and that's why my girlfriend would totally understand that I used ChatGPT to respond to her texts.
That's right!
And this whole sequence, the speech, the instant forgiveness, everyone just accepting it, is written to sound bad on purpose. The dialogue is stiff and a little too perfect. The logic is a bit wonky. At one point, Cartman throws a typical Cartman insult, but at Stan, when it was clearly meant for Kyle, like whatever wrote this couldn't keep its own characters straight. Because a human didn't write it, it's fiction, it's a dream. Stan asked ChatGPT for an ending, and this is the ending that it handed back, credited in real life to Trey Parker and ChatGPT. So you're basically watching a machine's idea of forgiveness, where reality is all wonky and things don't add up, all stitched together, fast and a bit wrong, exactly like a machine would write it without understanding real humans. What the episode never actually does is explicitly throw you back into reality afterward. It doesn't cut away and confirm that any of this really happened, whether Wendy actually forgives him or just never finds out, whether the whole thing even sticks. The last thing you get is this.
Well, now at least we know that sometimes a good old thumbs up from a human is better than a machine-generated lie.
Yeah, you're right, Stan. I love you.
Which is genuinely a great line, and it's tempting to read it as the moment the show hands the story back to the real Stan. But the episode gives you no clean seam telling you what's actually happening. It could just as easily be the machine, still writing, closing its own story, but with one more line built to sound like sincerity, learning as it goes, figuring out what makes reality tick. You don't get to know. That is an unsettling place for an episode to end about a boy who used to throw up in your face as part of his affection response, instead of lying and spinning this whole fake reality just to give Wendy what she wants. So here's the strange thing you notice once you step back and look at all of this together. None of it was even that dramatic, really. Look at who this show actually spends its time on. Stan's parents blow up their marriage twice and need a 2-part episode to crawl back. A couple seasons later, the show gives Cartman a girlfriend and turns it into the darkest, most disturbing relationship ever put on screen. That stuff got loud. It's got whole episodes to itself because that kind of pain and drama is a real story. But Stan and Wendy never get like that. They get a puke, a couple breakups, a picnic, a thumbs up, child's play, small stuff tucked into the corners of episodes that were mostly about something else. There's no big dramatic saga here because there's no wreckage to build one out of. Their relationship isn't ruined, it's just having a few bumps. Nobody's keeping a scoreboard for years or faking a suicide threat to win an argument. They don't give each other as much trauma as other relationships. The worst thing that ever happens between these two is that a scared kid can't find his words and runs away, and the other one gets scared right back and runs after. Healthy love just doesn't make for much of a plot. The point here is to learn and to grow, and to look for the more subtle things in relationships that help us do that. And that's one of the best things to take away from their relationship, because they're otherwise a disaster. They were never really compatible. They're a walking, anxious, avoidant train wreck, the exact match that's supposed to crash. And you can very easily make an argument for why these two should not be together. But they canonically are, because they keep coming back and getting a little better at it. They keep improving. That's what matters. And this took the better part of almost 30 seasons and a whole lot of screwing up. And they still haven't aged much because they still have a lot to go. If that sounds unglamorous, good, because that's kind of the whole point. That's why we're here. This is the uncomfortable part. You've got a thumbs up too. Everybody does. It's the haha, yeah, that you fire off when the real answer was, that hurt, and I can't tell you that it hurt. It's the text you leave unread for 6 hours because a real reply felt like too much pain, too much anxiety. It's the 3 dots that pop up, vanish, while you delete the honest thing 4 times and send something like, lol, same, hiding your true self behind these empty words. We're all a little avoidant now. We've got 100 apps that let us look like we're showing up without doing any of the showing up. We keep everyone else at a safe distance. Stan here just had the bad luck to get caught using this chatbot. The puke, the jealousy, the robot, all of it really comes down to one hard little lesson that almost took him 30 seasons to get. Or at least, it took him 30 seasons to learn this over time. The words don't have to be good, the actions don't have to be good, they just have to be yours, and you have to provide the intention and the desire to improve. So, say the real thing to the actual person before the moment's gone. Worst case, you throw up a little. Hopefully not on them. In your own body is safer, but it's still not pleasant, right? Now, Stan got there. Slowly, badly, allergic to his own feelings the whole time, but he got there. He learned to stop running from the feeling and just say the true thing, even when it comes out as one crooked sentence. The best thing here, really, is to be true to yourself, and then that helps you be true to others. But what about the guy who never learns this lesson? There's a man out there who watched caring about people cost him everything he loved, and he decided that the smart move was to stop caring at all. Smartest man in the universe, not me. He has a reason, locked and loaded, for why nothing in the universe matters, and why nobody is actually worth getting attached to in the first place. And as a result, he's in an absurd amount of pain the entire time he's saying it. I think because deep down, he knows it's not true. But that's how that works. Shove it down, and it hurts you. Learn the lesson. It also hurts, but at least you learn. Stan's whole problem was a kid thing he grew out of. Rick Sanchez is what happens when you don't. We already took apart why his Nothing Matters act was never a philosophy at all in the first place, and what it really costs you to spend your whole life pretending that you don't actually care, that you don't feel love, that all this is just a dream, that reality doesn't matter at all. That video's up there. Check it out and take its lesson to heart. Thank you so much for joining me like and subscribe, leave a comment talking about who you love and why. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace, y'all.